Order. Dr. Thomas, would you like to start with roll call?
Yes, ma'am. I will be glad to. Mr. Davis.
Here.
Ms. Gallagher. Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Dr. Yeager. And welcome back. Dr. Dykeman. Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Gant.
Here.
Mrs. Hull. And Dr. Maddox. Ms. Gallagher is here. I think she just stepped away.
All right, let's move on down to our moment of silent meditation. Or do we do that before though? Oh, okay. And now we will move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone can please stand and pledge to the flag. Thank you very much. And now we will turn it over to Dr. Thomas for district recognitions and awards.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. At this time, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Lawrence Harris. We have many recognitions and celebrations, as you all can see in the audience. And as I walked in, it was very exciting to see so many students because it helps to ground us on our work and what our work is really about. So we're excited to have Mr. Harris here this evening to present our recognitions.
All right, good evening, Dr. Thomas, Board of Education. We have several recognitions this evening. Water down, so I have a water. So we have a few recognitions and presentations. We are going to start tonight by announcing our March Employee of the Month. So our March Employee of the Month is Miss Anna Clarke. Ms. Clarke is a pre-K teacher at Barnett Shoals Elementary and is also part of the district's pre-K leadership team. She was nominated for Employee of the Month by a colleague who describes her as the epitome of an excellent teacher and a consistent mentor who is the first to offer help when new teachers need it. Anna always reminds you to find the good in everyone and everything, and she models that in her everyday behavior as a colleague, teacher, and friend. I think one of the greatest things about Anna is that her job doesn't stop after her students leave pre-K. She follows her students throughout their entire school journey, continuing to celebrate all their accomplishments and support them in their triumphs. Now, to say a few more words, someone who knows her better than I, Ms. Clarke, is Ms. Allison Nobles, principal of Barnett Shoals Elementary, along with our Employee of the Month. Come on up.
Good evening, Dr. Thomas and the board. So Mrs. Clarke is very surprised right now. She thought she was coming to assist me in presenting to the board about the Leader in Me program that we have at our school. She had all of her notes ready to go. She thought that my iLead team was here to help with that presentation, and so she is very much surprised. So I have been given the privilege to share a few words about the amazing Anna Clarke. Ms. Clarke has been a part of the BSC family for 14 years. She started off as a 5th grade teacher and then followed the journey from 3rd, then to becoming a pre-K teacher. She is a loving teacher that will do anything for her students. So when my daughter found out that her pre-K teacher would be getting this award, and my daughter is now a 6th grader, she said She enjoyed when they had Apple Day, which was a day when they learned about apples and ate anything that related to apples. It was such a wonderful ride. Ms. Crook is full of a happy soul and only wants to make others happy. So that's from Layla, Mrs. Crook. I would like to add to that Mrs. Crook not only serves as a leader within our building, she is a shining star for the Office of Early Learning, where she has led countless professional learning experiences. Her classroom serves as a model classroom, not only for our school, but for the district, where other teachers can come to see how to get the job done. I can stand here and name the many roles Ms. Crook has played within our building over the years, but you all have business to attend to. So with that, this accolade is going to one of the most deserving educators in all of Clarke County. It surely takes a big heart to shape little minds, and Anna's heart is as big as it comes. From home visits to Little League games to serve as her scholar's biggest cheerleader, and everything in between, Mrs. Crook is truly legendary over ordinary. So Ms. Crook, we honor you tonight.
I am never surprised. I am so truly surprised and touched. I just told them one of my babies is going to be recognized tonight, and she's in 11th grade. So thank you. I really just thank you for the opportunity to get to do what I love every day. So you can say there's nothing.
One sec, Ms. Crook. So in addition to your certificate, we do get about $1,000 worth of valuable products that get donated to our Employee of the Month. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being Employee of the Month.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Nobles, and congratulations again to Ms. Crook. Oh, and thank you to the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, the local businesses, and our partners who donate and services. Anyone in our community can be nominated for employee recognition. The entry form can be found on our district website. For more information or assistance, you can reach out to our communications department. Okay, so next slide. Next, we'd like to take a minute to congratulate our 2022 REACH Scholars. 7 of our 8th grade students were recently awarded scholarships through REACH Georgia, which stands for Realizing Educational Achievement Can Happen, a needs-based mentoring and scholarships program providing students a framework of support, educational and financial, to aid their successful journey through high school and beyond. These students were selected following an extensive interview process with their counselors and other school team members. Upon being selected, scholars must maintain at least a 2.5 grade point average and good behavior and good attendance through middle school and high school. Upon program completion, students are awarded a $10,000 scholarship, which can be used at any Hope-eligible institution in the state of Georgia. And a majority of Georgia colleges match or double match this scholarship. Let's congratulate the 2021 cohort of REACH Scholars and have them come up to be recognized. From Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School, Carlos Flores, who is our top district scorer, and Brianna Wilson. From Clarke Middle School, Amaria Barnes. From Coyle Middle School, Tanya Calderon, Cesar Castro, and Dalen Vilchis. And from Hillsman Middle School, Kamari Lovely Hall. Let's give these students another round of applause. Congratulations again to our 2022 REACH Scholars. Thank you. Next, we would like to recognize our 2022 district level winners of the Young Georgia Authors Writing Competition. For more than 2 decades, this competition has been aimed at encouraging students across the state to develop an enthusiasm for and expertise in their writing, providing a context to celebrate their writing successes and recognizing student achievement in arts and academics. The CCSD district level winner entries will now be judged by a regional panel of RISA judges later this month. Winning entries will advance to the statewide competition. Let's congratulate our 2022 district level winners. In kindergarten, we have Roman Balashaw from Whit Davis Elementary. In first grade, we have Frederita Stores from Gaines Elementary. In second grade, we have Lydianne Guerra from J.J. Harris Elementary. Congratulations. In third grade, we have Eloise Chalmers from Timothy Road Elementary. In fourth grade, we have Emily Miller from Timothy Road Elementary. In fifth grade, we have Owen Morgan from Whit Davis Elementary. In sixth grade, we have Evelyn Schleichelman from Clarke Middle. In ninth grade, we have Riley Ramsey from Clarke Central High School. In 10th grade, Claire McCarthy from Clarke Central High School. In 11th grade, Ava Maddox from Cedar Shoals High School. In 12th grade, Natalie Schleichelman from Clarke Central High School. Let's give another applause for our 2022 district level winners. Congratulations. Next, we'd like to recognize 3 students from Barrow Elementary who placed in the top 4 statewide in the junior division grades 4 through 6 of the Georgia Future Problem Solving Program Scenario Writing Competition. As an interesting note, the history of the FPS program has a strong local connection. The late Dr. Paul E. Torrance, a former longtime University of Georgia professor and creativity expert, began the Future Problem Solving Program in 1974 right here in Athens at Clarke Central High School. It has since expanded to 250,000 participants in 37 states and 14 countries. Scenario writing has been part of the program since 1978. As part of the competition, students develop short stories, 1,500 words or less, that are set at least 20 years in the future, based on given topics related to current events, and imagine the future outcomes of those current events or actions. Congratulations to these top placers. In second place, we have 4th grader Miriam Ahmed, and in addition to this, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you can clap, you can clap. Go ahead, Miriam, congratulations. In addition to her getting in second place, Miriam has been invited and plans to take part in and represent the state of Georgia in the FPS International Conference competition, which will be held virtually in May. We'd also like to recognize the 3rd place winner, 4th grader Jaden Mulamatil, and in 4th place, 5th grader Mason Marshall. We would also like to give a special thanks to Barrow Elementary teacher Janice Mullins, who coached these students on the writings and has coached several CCSD students to awards in the Future Problem Solving competition in more than 3 decades within the district, including Clarke Middle School, Hillsman Middle School, and now Barrow. Thank you for your dedication to our Clarke County students and for guiding them as they enrich their image of the future and hone their creativity writing skills. Congratulations. Just 1 second. So as many of you know, March is Youth Art Month. So I'm going to start by reading a resolution from Arts Our Education. This resolution honors Arts Month. Whereas all students have the right to an arts education that includes dance, music, theater, and visual arts taught by certified arts educators in partnership with community providers. Whereas arts education has the power to change students' lives. Whereas arts education is a key to reigniting students' learning in a post-COVID-19 world. Whereas arts education helps nurture healthy, inclusive communities where all points of view are respected. Whereas arts education helps students understand their own cultural roots and appreciate others' cultural roots and traditions. Whereas arts education supports the social and emotional well-being of students and fosters a more positive, safer school environment. Whereas our education is part of the well-rounded education for every student as outlined in the Every Student Succeeds Act and in state law. Therefore, the Clarke County School District pledges to maintain and grow our arts education program in the 2023 school year and beyond. So, as many of you know, March is Youth Art Month, as recognized across the U.S., and once again, this year at CCSD, our students, artists, and art teachers at our elementary, middle, and high schools have contributed to our online CCSD Youth Art Month online exhibition. This gallery is now live for viewing and can be viewed at the link on the screen. You can also find the link in our weekly Better Together newsletter, which will be released tomorrow. And finally, tonight we'd like to recognize you, our board members, as part of the Georgia School Boards Association Board Appreciation Week, which is March 14th through 18th. Thank you for all of your hard work and dedication to all of our students. I will now read a proclamation from Governor Brian Kemp. School Board Appreciation Week. Whereas our children's education is the key to our state's continued prosperity and success, and whereas for Georgia to continue to grow, we must commit to providing trained teachers and adequate resources to all schools, and whereas across Georgia, men and women serving on school boards have demonstrated a strong commitment to quality public education by securing necessary resources, promoting academic standards, and fostering partnerships within communities, and whereas Georgia's Board of Education collaborate with school systems, parents, and community leaders so that students can become educated, productive members of our state and nation. Now, whereas on this occasion, the state of Georgia commends all school board members for their dedication to the well-being of our youth. Now, therefore, well, that's Brian Kemp's line, so that is where I will end the proclamation. So congratulations to our school board. Thank you for your terms of service. Quick applause for our board. And so to close it out, and as a token of appreciation, and as a further celebration of Youth Art Month, several of our student artists and their teachers are presenting a piece of art to each of you. Students from one school in each board district submitted a depiction of their school building, and those have been reproduced as archival fine art prints. We would like to present copies to you, as well as the student who made the art. Our artists in CCSD, they're truly artists, which you will see in a moment, are learning to be thinkers and problem solvers, to which we owe gratitude to our wonderful art teachers. These artworks are containers of the spirit of learning. Just as our schools are, they are unique and are our students, teachers, and staff in school buildings. But we all share a part in CCSD's mission to bring high-quality educational experiences to all students. Geographically, These school buildings represented in these artwork are miles apart. Yet here we are to celebrate the board where we are unified as schools and a community to make CCSD better for all and better together. For Mr. Davis, this is from Winterville Elementary School, second grader Charlotte Watwood and art teacher Carlin Brownlee. If y'all come to the front when you get it, so we'll take a photo. For Ms. Gallagher, this is from Coyle Middle School seventh grader Luis Barron Aguirre and art teacher Rosaria Bang. For Ms. Davis, this is from Clarke Central Senior, Ava Sims, and art teacher Amanda Price. For Dr. Yeager, this is from Barrow Elementary fifth grader Garrett Lopp and art teacher Rita Fortich. For Dr. Dykeman, this is from Chase Street Elementary fifth grader Jack Rose and art teacher Krista Dean. For Dr. Anderson, this is from Bernie Harris Line seventh grader Flora Lomax and art teacher Samantha George. For Dr. Gant, this is from Alps Road Elementary fifth grader Ava Bishop and art teacher Isabel Scarano. We'll hold Ms. Holes, but for Ms. Hole, we have artwork from Cedar Shoals High School senior Nancy Suarez Gonzalez and art teacher Laura Lee Johnson. And last but not least, for Dr. Maddox, this is from Fowler Drive Elementary third grader Camila Lopez Rodriguez and art teacher Libby Hale. And with that, we would like to hope for a photo, but we do want to again say thank you to our board members, thank you to our students, and thank you to our fantastic teachers for this recognition. We will have a photo, and then students, we do actually have embossed copies of your photo for you as well. Congratulations. And Dr. Thomas, that concludes awards and recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you to all of our honorees and parents and administrators and teachers for being here today. It has been a joy to celebrate your gifts and talents and accomplishments.
Okay, I do apologize. We do have one more Reach Scholar who we actually missed, and I do want to make sure she gets her public recognition. We have Ms. Brianna Wilson from Bernie Harris Lyons Middle School. We also have Ms. Tanya Calderon, who also made it. We want to recognize her as well as a Reach Scholar.
And Dr. Anderson, Dr. Gant, that concludes our recognitions. It was worth it tonight. It was wonderful. So thank you all for your patience.
All right. That was so wonderful. That actually brought tears to my eyes, and I think several of us. Okay, we will move on to our board member announcements. We can maybe start with District 1 and work our way down with any announcements that you have.
Everybody's looking at me. I just want to announce 4 dates. April 25th is the deadline for voter registration to vote in the upcoming primary and nonpartisan elections. That's April 25th. May 2nd is the beginning of early voting. May 13th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. And May 24th is Election Day. Thank you.
Okay, so for parents, summer camp sign up has already started. Both Boys and Girls Club, Leisure Services, and UGA camps are all open and accepting applications. UGA, they do have scholarships, but right now they only have scholarships for specific camps, and those are entertainment and media studies, women excel in engineering, black engineering, which stands for, and the black stands for building leaders through and analysis, conceptualization, and knowledge, and ocean discovery. So if you have any students who are interested in any of those areas, apply for the scholarship. And on Saturday, I'm sure it's going to come up again later. On Saturday, there's an event held by Destin Inc. and Brown Scientific at First AME Church from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's in celebration of Reading Month. And it's a free event and open to all kids. And I'm going to read an email that I received from Dr. Carson at Stroud. And she said, we're excited to announce that HB Stroud will be working with Books for Keeps and East Athens Development Corporation through Creature Comforts Brewing Company's flagship community giving program, Get Comfortable 2022. The funded agencies will work together over the next 5 years to increase third grade reading proficiency to 20%, or from 20% to 60% within CCSD through family literacy events, one-on-one tutors at the school and across, and access to culturally relevant, high-interest reading materials. The inaugural school year, 2022-2023, will start with the students at HB Stroud as a pilot school and move into other buildings as the program grows. We are #Stroud Proud to be able to work with the East Athens Development Corporation, Books for Keeps, and Creature Conference. So, go Creature Conference. Thank you for supporting our students and making literacy a priority. And go Stroud for being selected as the pilot program for funding. That's all I got.
Okay, I'm desperately searching for the teachers' names that I visited at Oglethorpe Elementary, but I was especially delighted to find an envelope at my seat when I arrived. This is the wonderful envelope that contained all of these beautiful cards. So I'm glad that this is Art Month or Celebration for Art. This is from the first grade class that listened to me read, or actually read with me, the book by the little ice cream dude. And they were so excited to learn that not only is he from Athens, but he's graduating from Cedar Shoals High School this year. And so the next time, the one, I got a chance to glance at some of these, I think I have the message, next time bring cupcakes. So I will definitely do that the next time I come to Oglethorpe to read to the primary classes. Thank you.
I don't have many announcements. This will probably come up some in either the president's report or in maybe even Dr. Thomas's report. But we did have a chance to meet with representatives from the Be Smart program that presented some really just sort of solid information and ways in which schools and communities can partner when it comes to like things like gun safety. And so from my understanding and just from what I've been able to research is a non-political group that really just promotes safety in families. And so I was encouraged by that, and that's probably one of the more recent things over the past couple of weeks. But right now, that's all for my announcements.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we were going by number or by seat order. Seat orders. I wanted to just put a couple of plugs in for CCSD's Family Fun Day, which is happening in April. There's some flyers out on the website and on social media. Dr. Harris, what was the day? April 23rd. Our first event, our inaugural event, was such a huge success, and I really hope that all the future events are just as successful. Pre-K registration is closed, but there are still seats available for those who are interested in enrolling. Karen Higginbotham can be contacted for that. The Let's Talk About Race Forum that's happening in a couple of weeks. Bertus Downs did generously purchase a table for board members, and a couple of us are going, but I think that there's still space for a couple other members to go. If you're interested, please check your email. And this is not my district, but I do want to give a shout out to Clarke Central's symphonic band. They had their large group performance last week and got straight ones, no bad comments, all excellent reviews, and I'm just so proud of them. Not my district, crossing over, but that's okay. And that is all that I had for announcements.
So first let me say announcements are awesome. This is a new development. I like it. I'm completely unprepared, though, because I didn't know about it. I guess the only big announcement is I'm back. Thank you. We had quite an adventure for the last couple months. I'll try to put a talk together for y'all so you can see some of the photos. And the other half of that is I have about 1,000 emails in my mailbox. So if you sent me an email in the last 3 months, please give me a little time to find it, or maybe send me another one so I can see if it's still up to date. I'll be sorting through those for a while. So thanks again. It's good to be back.
I don't have any announcements, but I did just want to say thank you for our special presents today, including these delicious cakes, which I've sampled for all of you. Mine was very good. And also for the artwork. That was a really fun surprise. We had no idea, and we really appreciate it.
I would like to just be a ditto person today, ditto to what Mr. Greg Davis said. Please, if you are not registered to vote by April the 25th, we want everyone to get registered to vote. And also ditto to what Ms. Karina said, please join us on Saturday at First AME Church from 10 to 12 for a very fun day, all about reading. You know, that's my thing. I'm excited about that. So young people, please come out. Also, First AME Church will be hosting a summer camp again this year with the emphasis on reading again this year. So please look out for information regarding the summer camp at First AME Church. And I want to thank everyone who sent me cards and notes in the mail, as well as the emails. It's been very touching, because some people took a lot of thought into what they wrote to me, and I cried. So, and I want to say thank you. It feels good to be appreciated, but I do this because I love the young people in the community. So thank you all for recognizing us.
Okay. We will now move on to item number 3, to amend and/or adopt the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
You got one? I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion made by Ms. Davis and seconded by Dr. Maddox. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Agenda has been passed. Now we will move on to our item number 4, public comment. And I would like to just give a reminder that there is a line for public comment, and when your name is called, you can come up to the podium. We will set a timer for 3 minutes, and please be sure to be mindful of your 3-minute times. And please be respectful to district staff, educators, leaders, et cetera, in the community. And yeah, we will get started. So our first public comment is Jamie Mays.
Hello to all board members, district employees, and community members. Tonight I would like to talk about solutions. I've grown weary of going to the top.
Ma'am, can you please hold on just 1 second? We got to turn on your mic. No one can hear you in the live feed.
Can we start my time over too?
There you go.
Okay, that's better.
Can you start the timer over, Ms. Palmer?
Hello to all board members, district employees, and community members. Tonight I would like to talk to you about solutions. I've grown weary of going through the proper channels to find solutions. Emails and meetings, open records requests, nebulous responses, platitudes and promises without measurable results. It's hard to not grow tired and bitter. But I want to believe in public education. I have always believed in public education. I am a product of public education, and my children are products of public education. Many of our friends and family have moved out of Athens proper, citing the, quote, better schools afforded to them in surrounding counties, but we have held steady, committed to staying put and putting in the time and effort to do our part to make our public schools great. During this school year, I've watched groups from Clarke Middle and Oglethorpe Avenue and other schools advocate for multiple issues, and even though the things we're all advocating for might seem different, the common thread is usually a missing or dysfunctional district or board policy. Our district charter agreement requires a district-level advisory committee that oversees LSGT operations, and from what I've learned this week, it hasn't operated under our current superintendent. Without this oversight, many LSGTs have become dysfunctional. I've watched Charles Hardy develop a program, Dads and Moms on Duty, where community members and parents volunteer, and even though he went through all the appropriate channels, even after nearly 6 months, he's no closer to getting this program off the ground. The holdup has been background checks, which according to board policy should not even be required. I've watched as families with children with disabilities and those who are too young to be vaccinated be consistently ignored by the district. Further, making masks optional is ableist and harmful to our disabled student and teacher populations. It's easy for the district to call these small groups outliers, quote, small groups of loud voices. But when I step back and look, I see parents from elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools being ignored by the district. I see teachers and staff members trying to improve their schools and being ignored by the district. I see Black people and brown people and white people being ignored by the district. I see community members and organizations trying to create partnerships and being ignored by the district. So what is the district going to do to really engage with the community? We cannot keep waiting for them to figure this out. We cannot wait any longer for the district to invite us to the decision-making table. Instead, we need to invite them to our table. We must be proactive as a community. I am excited to introduce you to the newly formed Coalition for Athens Schools, and I invite anybody who truly wants our schools to improve to join me and many others for our meeting on Sunday afternoon. I'm inviting the parents, teachers, and staff members from Clarke Middle and Oglethorpe and any other school that hasn't made the news but still has concerns. I'm inviting all the dads, moms, and community members who wanted to volunteer for Charles Hardy's on-duty program. I'm inviting all of the teachers, staff members, parents, and students who are directly impacted by the district's consistent ableist policies. I'm inviting all current and former members of local school governance teams, parent advisory boards, and teacher advisory boards. I'm inviting local organizations, Clarke County school employees and administrators, and you, school board members. We can be better together.
Thank you. We will now move to Emily Krim.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As a community member, social worker, and parent of a child at OAES, I have serious concerns about the current environment at Oglethorpe and the response and actions taken by district leadership regarding this environment. Despite the many accounts of discrimination, unfair treatment, and safety concerns, the requests and calls for help from our teachers and parents seem to have largely gone unanswered. We teach our children that if they need help, to ask for it, and yet we are not extending that same protective capacity for the teachers that care for them. There are at least 30 teachers who have stated their intention to leave if the current school administration stays in place within OAES. And if that's a hard number to conceptualize, at my last count, there are fewer than 30 people that remain in your audience. We face losing more than a quarter of our teachers. These are existing positions that are held by committed and highly trained professionals. Teachers that have been a part of our school community and family for years, that understand and contribute to what makes our specific school work well. I know this school board and district leadership understands that the people we face losing are not just ones tasked with educating our children, but are individuals that serve as leaders, mentors, and caretakers to our children. These people that have dedicated time and energy to excel in their roles are simply not being protected. Quite literally, they have lacked the protection of an adequate safety plan in place of emergencies, which, as so many people know, resulted in an entire class being left behind during a bomb threat at our school in December. They've been ignored and looked over when requesting assistance in dealing with behavior issues, putting them and children at risk in the meantime. They've been denied adequate means of communication, both in the ability to fully communicate among all staff members, as well as even receiving communication from district leadership that was intended for them. Gosh, I lost it. These things alone create a huge safety risk for our teachers, and by extension, therefore, the children for whom they provide care. Many teachers have spoken up, yet still there are many that state they are afraid to. They find themselves in a toxic work environment where they are still giving it their all for the children, but working for any amount of time in a toxic workplace is simply not sustainable. So I fear without corrective action and change being instituted within our school administration, we will most definitely lose so many of our wonderful teachers. We will not be replacing them, but instead trying unsuccessfully to fill a void that is left. These people that know our children so well due to their commitment and investment in meaningful interactions with these kids that they've been able to determine what works best in educating them. They figured out how to make them laugh and feel worthy and important by getting to know them. They've tapped into how to assuage their fears during the heartaches of a pandemic. They've fulfilled their roles as mandated reporters by learning about about these kids and paying attention to their well-being and signs of trouble. They simply love their jobs, and even more so, it's apparent they love these kids. And we are not doing enough to make sure that that can keep happening effectively. So I'm here tonight because it would make me a hypocrite not to be. To sit back and expect my child and the other children at her school to be safe and cared for, and not speak up for and demand the exact same for their teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to Nicole Crenshaw.
Can we just ask that you all speak a little slower, because it's very difficult at that speed for our interpreters to maintain and share the information that's being spoken. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Good evening. By now, most people in Clarke County are familiar with recent events at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary. When I talk to people about what is going on at our school, though, they are amazed to discover the act of discrimination against a child's artwork and everything public surrounding it is just the tip of the iceberg. There has been so much stress inside the building for so long that what should be a once-in-a-lifetime mistake is just one more glossed-over incident in a long string of grievances. But as we fight for teachers and as teachers fight for themselves, we are being told we need to get back to being kid-focused, as if somehow providing a safe and supportive environment for teachers does not directly translate to the success and safety of our children. But our school is suffering. Our teachers are operating in a hostile work environment in an absence of leadership. This is not good for kids. Kids cannot do their best when teachers feel pressured and threatened and in fear for their jobs when they speak up about something they have been trained to know is wrong. Kids are not safe at school when teachers do not receive clear communications from their leaders, and their ability to communicate with one another has been repeatedly revoked. Kids are not safe when building leaders walk by a child and a teacher in crisis looks at them and just keeps walking. Kids were left in a closet during a bomb threat and forgotten as the rest of the school evacuated. Kids are not safe when this kind of oversight is denied and diluted and denied again. Kids are bombarded with insidious, rigorous learning every minute of every day instead of consistent and improved social emotional opportunities, even during a pandemic. Kids cannot make inclusive art that shares ideas supporting gay rights and human rights. Kids are not supposed to be talking about sexuality and identity in the classroom amongst their peers, as if you can somehow separate that out from a person's experience. Teachers need to be healthy and safe to do what they are trained to do. They need to feel that their jobs are safe if they speak up when something is wrong. Teachers need to feel safe when they call for help because a student is physically out of control. Teachers need that help to come when they call, and they need walkie-talkies to not be turned off when those calls are received. Teachers need to be protected from enduring a hostile work environment so they can focus on teaching our children and keeping them safe. Teachers need to know that if over 30% of the staff at a school files a formal complaint, the district officials will do something about it and interview at least some of them before closing the case and not informing anyone that it is closed. Teachers need to be able to submit formal complaints that will not be ignored until enough parents and community members ask so many questions and call so many times that the case will finally be properly investigated more than 2 months later. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move down to Karen Giroux. Is Karen Giroux here? Okay. Next is Brent Andrews.
I just wanted to clarify with Dr. Thomas. I've got this 12-point font, one page. It is 255, but it's a fast read. Do you want me to slow down, and will I be cut off? or you want me to read it the way I practiced it? It's fast.
You can read it the way you practiced it, just know that those who are receiving that information from our sign language assistants may not get it all. So
If
I
I
understand
slow
that people.
down, will I get
No,
cut
sir.
off? I will
Yes,
get cut
yes,
off.
you will get cut off, so yes, sir. Sorry.
All right, well, it's good seeing you back in that seat, by
Thank
the
you,
way.
it's good to see you, Mr. Andrews.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Thomas and school board members. In their article, Time to Shift Away from Standardized Testing, Wozniak and Schaefer state, it is important to think critically about the origins of standardized testing and how what began as an effort to ensure students shared a common touchstone for what they learned in schools became aligned with a set of ideologies constructed to disproportionately harm marginalized student populations and to maintain the status quo. In the Washington Post article, it looks like the beginning of the end of America's obsession with standardized tests. Strauss says of standardized testing, it didn't work, which came as no surprise to teachers and other critics. They had long pointed to extensive research showing standardized test scores are more strongly correlated to a student's life circumstances. According to fairtest.org, over 1,820 four-year colleges and universities have moved to make ACT and ACT test scores optional in the admissions process. Georgia's own Republican leadership has passed legislation to reduce the number of required state tests from 32 to 19. It's clear that the age of standardized testing is over, but it's also clear that CCSD seems determined to be a fly buzzing around the carcass of the defunct standardized testing system. In the last BOE work session, Mr. Gaskin stated that district leadership was looking at the best teachers and how to replicate that in other classrooms. Who determines which educators are the best teachers? And what criteria are they using to determine this? Are district leaders flooding CCSD schools to evaluate every teacher based on how well they engage students or how much of creativity they infuse into their lessons? How about the degree to which teachers engage families, encourage students to get involved in the local community, or help students navigate systems such as the college application process, contests, scholarships, and other opportunities? We all know the answers. District leaders are looking exclusively at student test scores. The idea that a system can just replicate what one teacher does misses the entire point of high-quality education. How does one harness the individual passion of a teacher and the many factors that go into creating the learning community? This attempt to replicate seems to be at the core of CCSD's approach to every aspect of education. The goal of education should be for students to think critically, but CCSD doesn't even encourage teachers to think critically. We are expected to replicate, duplicate, and regurgitate. CCSD has the opportunity to rethink how we measure student achievement, what constitutes a quality education, and what it means to be college and career ready. Will we rise to the challenge of our day, or will we squander this opportunity? Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to Delphine Harris. I hope I said that right.
You got it exactly right. Okay. Good evening. I'm here to ask and have some concerns. I'm a bus monitor for Clarke County, but I'm also a retiree from Clarke County. And I want to ask about the pay scale. When somebody gonna look at the scale? Because an on-call monitor makes $9 an hour. A salary monitor makes $9.91, which I think is ridiculous. But I did it because I love what I do, working with children. And the policies and procedures, when I got interviewed last year for a bus monitor, I got hired. They told me to go back and change it to on-call. I said, on-call? I said, well, that's fine. That means they'll call me when they need me. But they said, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to show up every day. I said, well, that's not on-call if I got to come every day. So I felt like I was working full time. But part-time. And like I say, the pay is, you can't live off $9 an hour. You just can't. But like I say, I'm a retiree because I retired. I had 14 years at Alps Road Elementary. But I'm quite sure there are some people who haven't retired and they have to live off of that income. And like every other week you go to work, somebody has left the district because they said the pay is not enough, and it's not. And my issue and concern is when somebody gonna look at it, because that pay scale is horrible. I don't know what bus drivers make, but I do know what the monitors make. And like I say, on-call is it's $9 an hour. Salaried monitor is $9.91. And it's a treat when you become salaried. It's not what you think it is. And so someone needs to look into it. Because the workload is, when you have people that quit almost constantly every week, then that put the load on the people that come every day. You have to pick up, you have to do extra routes. Like right now, the bus that I'm assigned to, we have 3 routes in the morning and sometimes 3 in the afternoon. And the pay is just not there. Because it's not just riding the bus. Of course, you have to monitor your kids. I work on the special need bus. I have children I have to strap in. I take temperatures, I clean the bus. Every time we let a group off, the bus has to be sanitized and cleaned. And it's a lot for $9. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to Jesse Evans.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jesse Evans. I think everybody up here, actually, I know. Good to see you, Dr. Thomas, and everybody, all the board members. I am here to speak about 2 things today. Before I jump in, I'm a teacher at Cedar. I'm in my 9th year teaching government and civics. I'm also with the Georgia Association of Educators, and I'm the chair of the legislative committee for GAE. Last summer, this board did really wonderful work in creating a local appeals process policy for teacher evaluations. I was involved on behalf of GAE and CCAE with collaboration with the board and with staff to help craft that language. And it's actually been celebrated as an exemplar throughout the state. It's really awesome. And it was published in, I wrote an article, like, thanking the board and for our collaboration, and also, like, just explaining the process and showing the policy. And, you know, it's been a really, really big success as far as promoting this effective policy throughout the state. The one issue that we have right now is we're in month 8 of the school year, and it's a 10-month school year, and teachers have been given no information, no training on an appeals process. And I've been asking since before the year started of my school building, I'm going through the chain of command, right, talking to my school building administration leaders about asking questions. When is this gonna come to us? And at the beginning of the year, I was told it'd be coming soon. The district says it's coming soon. And that was during our TEACS training, by the way, that we have at the beginning of every year, that it would be coming soon. And it hasn't come. And every time I ask, it's, oh, well, this is a district level decision, and we don't have any control over that. They just haven't given that to us yet. So I'm really concerned. People are starting to ask what happens when a district creates a great policy, but then CCSD is not actually living up to that policy and executing that policy. So I'm curious about that as well. I'm curious when we're gonna actually see that policy given to teachers and training given to teachers, given that we're coming to the end of the school year. So that's that, and I want to thank the people that actually voted for it and worked with me. I appreciate that, and teachers appreciate that. The last thing I want to say in the last 30 seconds, cell phone policy. Students are failing high school classes and failing to graduate high school because this district does not have an effective cell phone policy. Like, you've got kids who they don't have the impulse control. Some kids are literally addicted to these phones. And no matter how many times the teacher says to put it away, it's not being put away. So we need your help in making sure that these kids are succeeding with an effective cell phone policy. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Chris Mojog.
Good evening, district leadership, board members. My name is Chris Mojok. I'm an LSGT member at Clarke Central. I was excited to join the LSG team. I see it as an important part of our charter district contract. However, I had a recent meeting with district leadership, and a few items came up in the meeting that were concerning. The first is that the things said in LSGT meetings should not be shared outside the meeting. My question is, why is that if these are open meetings? Second question is, LSGT members are only LSGT members when they are meeting as the full LSGT group. Therefore, we should not interact as individuals with the members of our school communities. Point number 3, if the members of our school communities bring an issue to us, we are not to bring those issues to our LSGT for discussion. It is to be cleared with our principals or co-chairs, and I presume a district official could also validate the concern from the school community. I was told to be mindful if I were to be operating any of these ways, because I could be removed from the LSGT. So my request is for the board to investigate whether our leadership is operating in accordance with the bylaws, and to investigate whether this message and this threat of removal or implied removal is being delivered to any other LSGTs or LSGT members. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Heather Dean.
Hello. My name is Heather. My daughter is a student at Clarke Central. I see these amazing teachers that were here tonight and all these excited students and their caring parents, and we just cannot squander what we have here, and that's what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to sound the alarm. Teachers are going to leave this county in droves. We are facing a crisis here, and there seems to be no urgency from the district or school board. There are many reasons we are in a crisis. For one, the starting salary in Clarke County is around $39,000. The starting salary in Gwinnett County is around $48,000. What are we offering teachers here that is better for less money? You have built a district that is full of mistrust, anger, and hopelessness. I will give you one example. When a staff member is removed from their position, seemingly without warning, how do you think that affects teachers? Where can the district point to the policies that were violated for him or her to be removed? If she or he was moved because a policy wasn't followed, where is that documented? What procedures are followed when a person is removed from their position? What support is given to a staff member before they are removed? Our board members and district officials in the school before a dismissal make observations? to make observations, our board members and district officials in the school afterwards to address the dismissal. If policies and procedures weren't followed, how does the board and district instruct staff so they are followed in the future? There seems to be no straight answer from the district to any of these questions. This is just one example of why teachers want to leave. If you think there is an endless pool of teachers to draw from, that is not the case. According to UGA Today, their survey found that out of 6,000 teachers in Georgia, more than half of them wouldn't recommend becoming a teacher. This should be an all hands on deck situation because there are so many unhappy staff and teachers here. Please stop using the excuse that this is a national problem. You should be saying it's a national problem, but here in Clarke County, we are going to fight it. Teachers, staff, parents, and the community have been crying out for help with the problems in our district. As a collective body, you have reacted to the problems in this county case by case instead of being proactive, active. When confronted with a situation, you have to dismiss, cover up, or ignore parent and staff concerns. Teachers and staff are demoralized and burnt out. We need an overhaul from top to bottom, starting with hiring more bus drivers to get the kids to school, to hiring more counselors, social workers, and behavior interventionists, to listening and supporting teachers, to answering the questions and concerns of the parents and community. There are people working within the district and outside of it that are tired of the excuses, inaction, lack of transparency, and dismissal of concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And our last public comment is Kathleen Dewar.
Sorry, it's Kathleen Falk. My name's wrong on my email. Sorry. My name's Kathleen. I have a first grader and a third grader at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School. On December 17th, 2021, Jamie Mays delivered 2 envelopes to the district offices, one for Dr. Keena Worthy, the principal supervisor for Oglethorpe Avenue, and one for Meredith Paget, the HR investigator for CCSD. Each envelope contained a formal complaint signed by 47 teachers, parents, and stakeholders for Oglethorpe Avenue community. We're all aware of the shameful event that happened at our school in January that created national press. Shortly after that, we were informed by district-level employees that the complaint had been closed. This was shocking because at that time, not a single person had been interviewed by HR that had signed the letter. Board members, on February 4th, you received a copy of the complaint along with the signature page via email. On February 9th, an Oglethorpe Avenue parent filed an open records request for the documents related to the investigation. On February 14th, we received notification that the complaint was reopened because new information had been received. It was only after this date that the teachers who had signed the complaint from December started to be called in for interviews by HR. To date, there is not a single parent or stakeholder that has been interviewed by HR about the letter. Today is March 17th, a full 90 days since the complaint was submitted, and we still don't have any clarity or answers to the complaint. Dr. Thomas told a group of parents in a meeting on Tuesday that she hoped the investigations would be finished soon and that she would receive her report shortly thereafter. There are a lot of things happening here, but let me be clear. This complaint was mismanaged by the Human Resources Department. Why was this complaint closed without a single signee being contacted by HR? The complaint included, among other things, details of discrimination toward LGBTQ staff members, evidence of violations of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and CCSD policies, and detailed interactions with parents that were of concern. Only 12 of the signatures were anonymous. It was very courageous of these employees to put their names out there in a district that is famous for its retaliatory behaviors against staff members for speaking out. In fact, many of the teachers that signed have reported feeling targeted since the letter. As a parent at this school, I have never been more proud of my school and our teachers and staff than I have this year. Our community is strong, but we are at risk of losing many of our teachers. These are people who live in our neighborhoods, who choose to send their kids to our school, who know our children. They're asking for help. We've asked for copies of internal HR policies that dictate how investigations are run and have been told that decisions are made using the law and the department's professional experience. We know that there are existing Board of Education policies regarding some processes within HR, but we would like to, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. We will now move on to item number 5 on the agenda, and that is the board president's report.
Thank you for the public comment. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for presiding for me while I got my things together and for being on call for me. With the board president's report, there are a couple of things I wanted to mention. The first thing is that we did receive a notification from Mr. Pruitt regarding the SPLOS committee. And in that email stated that there will be, if you recall, if you go back to that earlier conversations when we voted, that eventually there would be a committee that would be made up of 3 commission members or 3 commissioners and 2 board members. And from my understanding, that is something that we would need to do. Mr. Pruitt, is that something that we need to take action on, or is it more so something that we just need to sort of have some consensus around who those 2 members will be?
No, you do need to take action on it. And that can be tonight. They said they could wait until April if you'd rather do it then. That's whatever the board's preference is.
Okay, thank you. So because it is something we would need to take action on, if the board is okay, I would suggest that we move that to April. From my understanding, I don't know that the 3 commissioners have been determined or not. You may have sent me that. But just to be thinking about that, I don't think we have a work session in April. But so be thinking about who you want those members to be. If you want to be one of those 2 members, just let us know, and that way we can take action in April to determine who those 2 members will be. And so thank you for keeping us updated on that, Mr. Pruitt. The second thing I'll mention, and this may go over into Dr. Thomas's report too, and that is, I hope everyone has had an opportunity to read through our Cognia report. We have received a recent report, and there are just a couple of things that I'll mention here about where we are. From my understanding, they will be coming back in 2023, which they will wrap our review into the regular visit of the school district. But I do want to note that we are still under review. There were 2 particular areas, the areas that we've been focusing on, and there's been some significant growth. But if you've read through that, there are some ongoing areas of improvement. And so if you would be thinking through that, I did want to put on your radar, Dr. Thomas, as she mentioned in her email, is going to send out a press release. Previously, when we've had conversations about Cognia, we've had it sort of, that conversation embedded within our regular board meeting, our business meeting. And so one of the things I wanted to just get your feedback on is perhaps having a call meeting specifically to discuss our Cognia report. To date, I think this is our 3rd report. Sometimes there's a lot of confusion in the community as far as what this means and where we stand. And we know that there's some work we need to do as a board. From reading that, we need to have a plan to address the directives. One was specifically for the board advisory committee. And so we may have some ideas regarding how we, how we're sure that doesn't turn into sort of a committee in and of itself, but then that other area of governance and overreach. And so being sure that we're focusing in on that through training as well as the behavior that's paired with the training. And so I do want to just sort of get your feedback on your thoughts about having a call meeting specifically to discuss the Cognia report, to develop some tentative action steps or a tentative plan as far as how we will address those areas. And then also to have an opportunity for Q&A. I do think people have questions about Cognia, people have questions about the role of the board, and people may have questions and they may not be aware of the significant progress we have made. And so let me pause there. That's really the second and only other thing in my report. Are there any thoughts about the Cognia report, a call meeting, any ideas around that?
Definitely like the idea of a called meeting, just to specifically focus on just that area. I think there's enough there for us to certainly be more effective if we're only looking at that particular thing. I'd like for us to solicit certainly from the board members, any recommendations that we can do, things that we think we need to do based on what we've gone through so far. Am I doing it again? Okay, sorry. Yeah. So my vote is yes my recommendation is yes for a special meeting where we concentrate only on the Cognia report and to solicit input from board members on where we think we can do some things very differently.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Others, any ideas for or not, or different ideas? Dr. Maddox?
Okay. Madam Chair, I agree with the call meeting. However, stating that you stated that, you know, we could also have questions and answers. I mean, I can't ignore what we just heard in these public comments and what's been going on in the district. And I just don't see us having a call meeting for just Cognia and then having questions and answers and then not really being able to have an opportunity for us to start working on some healing for this community. Like, I can't see how we can just have a Cognia meeting, with just, questions and answers without hurt doing more harm, because as people come up to ask questions, they would be constantly shut down because we're saying, oh, it has to only be related to Cognia. And, and so here we are once again, and I'm ready for us to start working on healing this district. I'm having a hard time sitting up here today. I really am. I want us to, so we have a meeting, I want us to think broader and start thinking about ways that we can begin to work as a community and, start addressing these areas of concern. We can't just keep pushing things under the rug. And I can't think past nothing else tonight. Like I cannot sit here and think past nothing else until we can start talking about how we are going to work as a community and address some of these things that need to be addressed. And so I totally agree with the call meeting, but if we're talking about opening it up for questions and answers, I think that we need to work on a broader meeting and discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Maddox. Others?
I second that.
I mean, I think it also does roll into the Cognia report, having this broader conversation about what's happening in the community. One of the things is to discuss the roles of the advisory committee or advisory board providing feedback from the community and what the board does with that feedback and how we use it to, develop policy or try to encourage that policy be developed at the district level. So, I mean, I think just in that item, there's room to have a broader conversation beyond just Cognia and our fear of Cognia and talk more broadly about what these issues might be. So I think an open call meeting would absolutely be where we could do that, and it could still be covered under that advisory component of how do we get information and what do we do with it.
Thank you. Ms. Gallagher, Dr. Yeager, Dr. Dykeman, any additional thoughts?
May I? If no one else has anything else, okay. I am very much in favor of again, more structure to kind of zero in on the particular things that we collectively understand from reading that report. That's one thing. I think the concern that I also hear is kind of an open meeting where it's kind of a free-for-all. Anything that comes up, comes up. I don't know if we have any new information from what we've heard tonight and that's different from what we've gotten from our survey. And so I'm curious as to how we would somehow be effective in having a communication where we can truly look at if there's a laundry list of things that are critical, and can we prioritize that list so that, again, we don't have unlimited resources to do the research on any of this. So I think that it would be, I want us to be successful in having the called meeting. I want us to come out of that with some specific results. And I think that if we narrow the scope, we have a better chance at doing that. And if we need to have multiple call meetings, then I think that's fine. I think if there's other things that we need to address, that we, especially around our responsibility and our response to the concerns that we're hearing, I think that's a different meeting. And maybe out of that, we'll learn why we're still having problems being evaluated by Cognia. And so I think they may feed to each other, but I'm definitely not interested in a free-for-all. I need more structure.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I just, again, backing up what Dr. Maddox said. When I look at the very creation of Cognia coming into this district, at the very core, it was the relationship of the board to the community. That's the very core of it. Now, they've doctored it up in a lot of legalistic stuff and about how the board functions, and I get all that. And we've addressed that, or attempted to address it repeatedly through development, staff development, board development, through doing away with our committee structure and these other changes. But the fact remains is that at the very core, I don't think that this board has effectively communicated or is engaged in effective communication with the community. And I think that for us to move forward, we have to go beyond simply what a few people who come in from other parts of the country through Zoom, interview a few people and have that assessment. We live in this community. We hear what's said at these board meetings. We hear what we hear from out in the community and our neighborhoods and everything. And we know that Cognia is just a small fraction of the discussion that we have to have. And I think we need to take every opportunity to have it.
Okay. Other thoughts? If I may give a little bit more context, so I think we are at whatever the will of the board is. What we do know is if you go back through that report, we do need to have these conversations so that the community is aware. I don't think it's a mutually exclusive thing. I think all of us up here understand that there's a lot of brokenness in our community. And so, and I do, to Dr. Anderson's point, I do think there's a lot that could be perhaps even included in the frameworks here. But I just want to, sort of reiterate, and Mr. Davis, I know you weren't saying this, but I think this is a little bit more than just a few people coming in and telling us what they think about what we're doing and what we need to improve. And that doesn't mean that we operate in fear, but the accreditation of our school district is at stake. And so some of these same marginalized populations and students that can't afford to just leave the county, they can't afford to just go to private school, they have less choices, those are the individuals and families that are most impacted. And so it doesn't mean that I agree necessarily with everything that was in the report, you know, but I mean, we've made a lot of significant progress, but I don't want us to necessarily conflate this, and I don't want this conversation to be lost. There is still specific work that we need to do as a governing body as well as a school district, and we'll learn a little bit more about that, of course, when they come for the regular review and they'll evaluate us. But I don't know, you know, some people say it's operating in fear, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion, but we have students here that will be impacted more than any of us ever will. And so I do think that we need to carve out time to specifically discuss this report. I think everyone needs to reread this report and reread the other two reports so that, as with the last times, we can come up with a plan on how we are going to continue doing the work that we're doing. And I don't think that means that we still can't have conversations about how we heal the community, but I think there is work in there for us. Healing the community is a partnership between the board, but it's also the work of the district and the superintendent. And so I just want, you know, I'm not trying to necessarily debate, but I want to be sure that I'm clear about my perspective as one of 10 on our team, that we still have work to do, and that this is not something that can be minimized, just like the other concerns in our community can't be minimized either. But I don't want to conflate this. I want us to be sure that we're paying attention to the feedback that we do receive. I think there's some value sometimes in receiving a perspective outside of our community.
Can I say one thing just in response? I was just trying to look it up, and I haven't looked I haven't been able to find it real quickly, but Bill 498 is in the Georgia.
Sorry, Greg. Could you speak
What?
a little bit louder?
Oh.
I can't hear you down here.
Senate Bill 498 is currently being under consideration, and it's focused on Cognia, and it's suggesting that Cognia, by state law, focus 80% on academics and 20% on finances. So there is concern that there sometimes is overreach, and so I don't want to belittle with a big club that Cognia wields, but I do think that at a certain point, those who swing the big clubs can overreach. And apparently there's people in the Senate that think so, in the Georgia Senate.
All right, so I think what I hear is that at the very least there is some consensus for a call meeting. Dr. Anderson and I will, and Dr. Thomas will talk a little bit more maybe about what that looks like, as well as sending out that tentative agenda to everyone so that, to be sure that it is representative of what the collective board feels should be present at the meeting. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gant. My report is brief, a couple of just really quick updates. Ironically, one of the things I already had on was the CCSD Charter Advisory Council. That the Charter Advisory Committee will meet April 12th at 4 o'clock. The committee will provides input into the charter system bylaws, implementation of the district charter contract, as well as ensuring best practices and support for our LSGTs. The recommendation/request is that one board member be appointed to attend this meeting each month or quarter. I know they used to meet quarterly. Is it still quarterly? Okay. To be similar to what we do with our other advisory committees. So if that's something that the board could think about and have some conversation around, if there is one member who would be able to or interested in participating in that quarterly meeting so that we can have representation from the board on the Charter Advisory Council.
I would be interested in doing that.
Anyone want to?
Are we going to have a rotation, or is it just going to be one person? For how long?
I think that's something that the board can decide if you all want to rotate it.
I would love to see a rotation.
Did you say it's quarterly? I'm sorry.
Every other month, sorry.
So 6 times a year, 4, 5 times, okay?
About 5 times a year.
I think rotation would be great.
So the first one will be Dr. Yeager. Are you able to attend on April 3rd, Dr. Yeager? I mean April 2nd, I can't talk. April 12th, I'm so sorry. At 4 o'clock, yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next is CCSD Communications Department is working with the National School Public Relations Association to review and streamline communication strategies. We've heard a lot of feedback and input on needing to improve our communication, wanting to reach all stakeholders. So beginning on Monday, March 21st, that department will be launching an online communications survey through the National School Public Relations Association aimed at evaluating the effectiveness of our communication with staff, parents, families, and our community as a whole. There will be separate surveys for parents and guardians, employees, and community members to complete. It will go live this Monday morning, and it will run through April the 1st, and then the data will be used as part of a broader communications audit. There will be links in English and in Spanish for each of the surveys, and those will be in the Better Together newsletter that comes out tomorrow. And then once those links are actually live on Monday, they will also be on our website and be on social media. So we just encourage you to tell people about the survey and really encourage them to give us feedback on how we can do a better job of communicating. And they will also have some focus group with stakeholders so that we can pull all of that together to develop a comprehensive communications plan.
And who's doing that work?
Working with the National School Public Relations Association.
Okay, thank you.
And this is, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is different than the other communications survey that was done a couple months ago? Why is there
Dr.
another
Harris,
one?
do you want to come and explain that?
Okay, there we go. Yes, so this one is different. So the survey we sent out before was a preliminary. We sent it out to see what kind of data we could collect. Our participation rates were fairly low. 75 people took our community survey. We had higher participation from our parent survey. And so when we met with Scope and NSPRA, they do recommend that you have a certain level of participation and that we use the Scope national survey. So it is different. So that's why we're encouraging everyone to take this survey. The answers are much, there's better questions. The survey is structured better. And this will help drive our communications plan, which is strategic priority 2.1. So yeah, we kind of prematurely sent out that first survey that was developed by us. And then once we met with them, they said we really need to use kind of the national standard because we get better results. So yes, it's a repeat.
And you'll be aiming for a higher can you say that word? Thank you. Rate?
Yes, but we have no doubt because, so Scope does this everywhere. So we've already told them we did the survey. They said they understood this happens in districts all the time. You send a survey out. They had worked with districts before that sent a survey out, and then they had to come back in, so they're helping us with the language. They've helped us streamline the description of the survey to help encourage people to take it. So yeah, I don't have any doubt we'll get higher participation from this survey because this is the work they do. And I think also they've given us strategies on how to better reach our community. So since they tend to work in communities similar to Athens with higher populations, they've now told us how can we go out to get survey results versus just relying on email and our newsletter, which is what we did prior.
And are they then going to work with your team to establish the communication plan based on the results that are found?
Yep, so it's
So
a
this
full.
is a long-term.
Long term, yeah. It's more short, so it takes 2 months. So they will go through communications audit now, gather all of the data from the surveys. They'll do 10 focus groups varying from different participants, principals, teachers, community members, LSGT members, students, local business and community stakeholders. So there's a list of 10 focus groups, non-certified and certified staff. So they'll conduct all 10 of those focus groups, ask them a series of questions. That will then go into recommendations for what should be in our plan and the gaps in our communications and ways that we can improve. That will then work this way into strategies that we would then enact over the next coming years to help streamline communication. So yeah, they're pretty much helping us go from audit to plan development, and then implementation is on us.
Are they volunteering to do this, or is the district paying for it?
Oh, there's a cost, for sure.
How much is, somebody? If we can get that in an email somewhere, if you don't know it off the top of your head.
We can't understand you, I'm sorry.
If we can get that in an email, if you don't know it off the top of your head, it would be nice to know the cost.
Absolutely. And I'll link in our last one. Our last one was done, I think, in 2018. So it's standard to do communications audits every 2 to 3 years. So I can send that.
We can put it in the Friday board update.
I do have a question for you before you close out your report.
I'm not closing, but go ahead. Is it about one of the other items or something else? Go ahead, just go ahead. Ask me.
Okay. I was going to ask you, where are we on the CCSD Connect?
So CCSD Connect is being done through Jamie Washington and our federal programs. I know she started, met with one group. You meet with her regularly. We'll have an update next week, and we'll put it in the next Friday's board update. I know she has been meeting with groups and doing trainings, that's correct. So I know that has happened, but we can have you an update in the board update. You're welcome. And my last thing was just, in tomorrow's board update, I was going to outline 4 areas to consider regarding West Broad. And in December, I indicated that I wanted us to make a decision regarding the location before a new superintendent started, so that that wouldn't be baggage that was brought and handed to them. That was the goal. That still is our goal. We wanted to have a meeting and still want to have a meeting with the board to see what is valued and what the board desires as a group before we start looking at official recommendations. Unfortunately, we have had a lot of called meetings, and now looks like we're going to have another called meeting. So it keeps getting kind of pushed back, so I would like to just talk to Dr. Gann and Dr. Anderson about that as a priority to get that done, but recognizing there are only so many days in a week, and there are other things that continue to come up that take priority over this. But I do want to just put some thoughts out to the board tomorrow, and then see when we can meet. I had said next month, but I know we have spring break and then only one board meeting, and it looks like now the Cognia and Q&A may take precedent over that. But just think about that, and I'll get some communication out in our update tomorrow. Because I would like for us to start making some traction with that. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, just one general question. I'm not asking you now, but I know there are questions on our Google Docs that we're still waiting for answers. So is that something that we would get over the period of the next week or so?
Yes, so the majority of the questions that were asked before this week have been answered. Okay. If you look at that document, almost everything has a response unless it came in after the 16th, and so we just need time because we still have our daily work tasks. So these were within the last 48 hours, so those have not been answered. I've asked the team to do what they can, and I've unfortunately asked if they can look at it over the weekends, but they need some space as well to be able to do the work. So if we can allow a week from when we get those questions to begin, and some of them are require pretty significant time commitment, and if they are ones that are going to take longer, I'm going to put that note in the notes column.
And one thing, just as a reminder, I have asked, and I think this was a part of like maybe communication a couple of weeks ago, but if there are questions that go into that document, and if the questions do require a significant amount of the staff's time, then that Dr. Thomas let us know that, or that she comes back and asks us if this is something that the board collectively wants to know. And that is in accordance with the norms that we as a board came up with. And so if you go on there and the question hasn't been answered, or if you receive that response, that I have asked her to do that, because that seems to be consistent with what we said we would, that's the process that we said we will follow as a collective.
But just kind of, I mean, the things that we're also talking about are things like the diversity study and, also in terms of facilities use and things. I mean, the questions have been out there a long time. These are not brand new questions.
But many of those questions have been answered. So if we're talking about the disparity study, we've answered that 3 times recently. And so sometimes the frustration is that we provide answers in the board updates and then they're not read. And so we have given face-to-face updates about the disparity study. We shared that they had evaluated the proposals and when Ms. Veronica Jackson was going to come back. So that's been in, I think, 2 or 3 recent board updates. And then it was something else you just mentioned. What was the other thing you said? Who? Oh, facilities. I said several times that we were waiting on the new director of operations to come in, and that we were meeting with him as soon as that person is approved, and that I was having meetings with our athletic directors. So sometimes it's a little frustrating when we say the answers aren't there, but I've given answers. And I've said that we are meeting with them. We're meeting with our athletic directors. I even shared directly with you that I've spoken to John Ward, and I've spoken to Drico Thomas, and I've spoken to you about that, and we even planned for it. So some of these answers may not be here, but we've had direct conversations about them. And that becomes frustrating for our team as well, because when efforts are made to put the communication out, and then it's said we're not responding, but then we can go back and resend. So I just respectfully ask also that the communications that we share are read, and that we're not kind of accused of not responding, because many of those times we have provided a response. That concludes my report.
All right, are there any follow-up questions or related to the superintendent's report?
As I listen and as I read some of the questions, and I haven't read the Google Doc most recently, but I'm wondering if we are cross-referencing these questions to the survey results, to those things that we know are on our plate to look at some point. Do we have anyone who can actually pull this together for us to give us a picture so that we can maybe bundle this in some way and just move beyond where we are with this? Because we have this conversation a lot. Is there a bundler? If we don't have a bundler, maybe we need to find one.
We may need a bundler, and I think Ms. Bonas has tried to help us with bundling, and that's something we can work on together. You can be the bundler, like the lady on the commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, she will bundle. She loves bundling. That is her zone of expertise.
And I think that really does, when you put things in a perspective, because everything is connected, believe it, and we know that, right? And so then the question becomes, which fire do you put out first, right? We got a few fires, and so if we have them in bundles, then we can at least kind of, for me anyway, it'll help me organize my thoughts better.
Thank you. We'll move forward with the financial report. This is item 7. I think, I'm trying to remember, someone mentioned that they had questions but would call. And I'm blanking on who that was, or making that up from another meeting. But are Are there any new updates there before we take action?
For the financial statements themselves, they're still materially the same as 2 weeks ago. One thing that I did want to mention that has changed in the last 2 weeks, the second to last slide about the state's FY22 amended budget, it allowed for us to make $2,000 or $1,000 distributions to employees. The $2,000 were full-time, state-funded instructional staff, and then the $1,000 were for bus drivers, nurses, nutrition workers, and part-time employees. They went back and passed it unanimously that rather than having some employees get 2 and some get 1, all getting $2,000. So just yesterday, the governor signed the amended budget into law, and we got some initial communication today from GDOE about which employees were covered. And I just wanted to put on your radar that I know we have a called board meeting next week. We're going to bring forth a budget amendment that is going to allow or permit us to distribute those payments ideally before spring break on April 1st. So I just want to put that on your radar.
Super.
Could I ask one quick question before you? Do those include early Head Start teachers and staff? Okay.
So from the state, their $2,000 won't be included in that supplement. They get a power supplement. So we're going to kind of have to braid together different sources of funding so that all staff get $2,000. I know we have early Head Start and Head Start. They get theirs directly from DeKalb. Pre-K gets the power supplement. So I may have confused those a little bit, but oh, they are all called power. Okay. So we have withheld distributing those because we wanted to make sure that we got all the information from the state so that our payments across the board were equitable.
Okay. So everyone will get the 2,000 then. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. The floor is open.
I move that the financial report be accepted as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Mr. Davis. Any other questions related to the reports or updates provided by Mr. Schooneman?
I don't have any questions, but I did read that we're going to not have to do this every month. Did you read that as well? You feeling better? No, you still got to do the work, right? Okay. Super.
Okay, all right, all in favor of approving the financial reports, if you would, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay, that motion carries. We'll move forward to our personnel recommendations. We have the personnel board report, the contract list, the job description, and the personnel board report addendum. Dr. Thomas, are there any updates related to this before we open the floor for a motion?
I do not have any updates. I'm looking at Dr. Blankenship. Are there any changes to personnel? No, ma'am, there are no updates. Thank you.
Okay. Any specific questions, board colleagues?
Can I just move to approve all 4 personnel items?
All right. So we have a motion by Dr. Yeager to approve all 4. Is there a second? Okay. So we have a motion by Dr. Yeager, a second by Dr. Anderson. For the record, follow-up questions or comments?
Yeah, that's going to put me in a, that's going to put me in a situation of, there's one thing that I'm going to vote no and 3 things I'm going to support. So I would respectfully ask the board not to do that.
I'm sorry, what did I miss?
What Dr. Yeager had proposed is that items 1 through 4 under personnel recommendations be taken as a group.
Okay.
And I would ask that that not be done respectfully.
Could we do 1, 2, and 4, and then do 3 separately?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a
Make it
substitute?
shorter.
Do you want to rescind that motion, or does someone want to provide a substitute motion?
I can modify the motion to be, let's approve items 1, 2, and 4.
Second.
All right. So we have a substitute motion of, to take action to approve items 1, 2, and 4. And Mr. Davis seconded the motion. Any other follow-up questions around that motion? Any conversation? Okay, all in favor of approving items 1, 2, and 4, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? All right, so that motion passes. We now have the personnel recommendations for number 3. Dr. Thomas, is there any update that you can provide?
No, ma'am, I shared that in my communication earlier this week. Thank you.
Okay, and is it your recommendation?
It would be my recommendation that it be approved. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the floor is open for a motion.
I move that we approve.
Okay. We have a motion by Dr. Yeager.
Second.
Is that
That's me.
Dr.
I know, I never make seconds, so you didn't know where that came from.
Dr. Dykeman, we have a second. Follow-up questions or comments before we take action on item 3.
I have a question. Did we make our family engagement specialist full-time yet?
We have family engagement specialists at some of our schools that are finishing out the year because we did not want to change those positions mid-year. But for next year, they all are supposed to be full-time. Is that correct, Mr. Harris? Dr. Harris? Is that not correct, Dr. Harris? That's not correct? That is the recommendation in the budget. The budget has to come to you all. And we are continuing to flush out that budget, but that's being brought to you for approval.
So are these, this triggered a question, are these CCSD employees or are these CISFC employees?
No, we're talking about family engagement specialists. They work at the schools.
That are CCSD employees?
They are CCSD employees. All of our schools have someone working in a family engagement role. Many have full-time family engagement specialists. A couple of schools have another person, maybe a counselor, who's doing that job in addition, as additional work. But majority of our schools have them full-time, and the recommendation has been that they all be full-time so that we can equalize the supports that are being offered at all of our schools.
And if I may interject, we're talking about item 3. Is that
Right,
correct?
I got confused too, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
I just want to clarify, the reason why I'm asking is, at some point, we're going to have priorities. And if we don't make the people who currently work for Clarke County School District a priority, and we keep on creating new positions for people who are not giving direct service to students, we are doing a disservice to students.
Let me encourage us, if that is your position, then to state that's your position. But if you have a question that is about what's on the list, ask a question. I don't want us to get so far away from simply direct communication. And so we have the task before us right now is to vote this up or down. And all of us have access to the superintendent. We have our work sessions, and we have the time in between. So I want to direct our focus, certainly encourage us to share our positions, but I don't want us to go on tangents that are not related to what's on our agenda.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
What is related is that this position is being created for an existing Clarke County School District employee. So I think we need to keep that at the front of our minds as we have these discussions about whether or not this position should be created or not. It already is being done by someone who does not have a title.
Mr. Davis?
Yes. I did talk to Dr. Thomas earlier today, and I told her that I would be voting against this. And I just want to, for my fellow board members, this job is half of what Michael Harris used to do. Now, you can certainly argue that the more, the less responsibility that's on a job, the better that person can do what job is left remaining. But I am concerned, and I cannot see myself, as what limited time I've got left on the board, voting for any more positions in the central office. And so that's something I explained to Dr. Thomas, and so it's going to just be the way I feel, because I think we're too top-heavy.
Thank you for your perspectives and questions. Additional comments or questions about the action item of the job description?
I just have a comment about the concerns that have been expressed so many times by so many people that come to our podium about HR and HR concerns and our employees and taking care of our employees. And so when we try and follow a strategic plan based on an audit that was performed that gave us significant evidence that we had some serious failures in our HR department, when we're trying to address those, I would want us to consider that we are trying to follow a plan. Now, maybe that plan hasn't been made plain to all of us, but reading that audit report, we are deficient in terms of giving the support that we need for our staff. So I'm totally going to vote for this position.
Can I also add just one quick thing? This is piggybacking off of Mrs. Davis's comments, so it's not like I'm inventing. Okay. This morning, I had the wonderful opportunity of sitting in at a retreat for the early Head Start group at the Center for Early Learning. And one of the things that kept coming up over and over and over and over again was the need for staff professional development and the need for staff to have clear lines and pathways for promotion and for getting better salaries and for understanding how to do their jobs better and for getting more support to do their jobs better. And that support has to come from an individual. And that individual currently is working in that role in this minute to do that job that all of the staff at CCSD are asking for. They need more professional development. They need more support in their classrooms. This person's doing that work, so I think we really do need to be careful and cognizant that this vote is going to reflect that that role is currently being done.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor of approving the job description under personnel recommendations? If you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? Okay. And then any abstaining? Okay. Ms. Palmer, did you? Okay. So that motion carries. I can't remember the final count because we're missing someone.
4, 5, 6.
6, okay. All right, we'll move forward with our consent agenda discussions. I'm sorry, items 1 through 3. The floor is open.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as published.
Okay.
Are we going to have a discussion on each one of these?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm good. We've
Yeah,
already
I'm
had
sorry.
that. Yeah, we had that already. So I move that we approve the consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Okay, that was Dr. Yeager, I think. Okay. All right, all in favor of adopting the consent agenda, if you would, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay, that motion carries. We'll move forward to 10. These are our action items. We'll start with 1, and this is the action to approve Clarke Central High School's FFA State Career Development Event Field Trip.
I so move. I'm excited about that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Follow-up questions and thoughts?
I will say that I've supervised these, at least one of these trips, so great fun and great learning experience.
I haven't had anybody say they didn't enjoy themselves and learn a lot at these. So I'm really excited about this one happening again so soon.
And the students did have to qualify, so it is an exciting opportunity for them to be able to move forward in the competition.
Awesome. All right, all in favor of approving item 1, the FFA Career Development event, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs. And any abstaining? That motion carries. We'll move forward to item 2, and this is an action regarding the RFP for superintendent search. I'll just add some information. We'll open the floor up before entertaining a motion. We received the ratings, I think, at 2 weeks ago, and so hopefully all of us have had a chance to read through those. We also asked for individuals to send any thoughts that they had about the RFPs that we have, so that we could make some decisions tonight on the RFP and just the direction in which we're going regarding our superintendent search. So I'm gonna, I think all of that has been shared. I think Dr. Anderson sent some things, Dr. Dykeman, based on earlier conversations, Mr. Davis. Am I missing someone? And so I'm gonna open up the floor for discussion with the goal of that discussion leading us to taking action on where we're going and the RFPs.
Age before beauty again? Okay.
Okay.
I don't mind. So I'm sorry I didn't send any comments yet, but what I did is I started talking to people in the community that I think that I truly respect in terms of their tenure in education and the things that they're currently involved in. And so the takeaway that I got that I would like to share with us is that the recommendation from this one particular source, and I think we would all respect this person, is not to rush. That we have a lot on our plate, and I think that to have a plan to go forward with what we want this superintendent to do in our community is important, that we should all be of one accord in what we're looking for in a superintendent before we move forward with putting out a request for one. So I'm wondering if we can delay this vote until we actually have had some conversation about what it is we want to do, and what are the questions that, what questions can we anticipate a candidate asking us that we don't think we'll have an answer to? Has anybody thought through that? Are there things about our district that we can articulate? Because everybody coming to us knows where we are in terms of our accreditation risk, and they know that we have a lot of things that are going on, but are we at a place now that we can clearly articulate what we're looking for in leadership for the district?
Sorry. Are you asking for the actual search for the superintendent or the search for someone to help us search for the superintendent?
Both.
Okay. I agree with you that I think we should not rush. And I also think it's a really good idea that we better understand exactly what we're looking for before we put an ad out and start getting applications for superintendents. Maybe where we differ is that I feel like using a third party to help us figure out what it is that we're looking for would be helpful, to help kind of streamline and structure our discussions about what it is that we're looking for. So I am fine with not rushing, but I think that still trying to come up with an organization or someone to help us with the search process is something that we could still move forward on.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Dykeman. I think that if we delay voting on or making a decision on this RFP, then we are further delaying getting a third party to come in and help us with our sort of group think of what we want out of the next superintendent so that we can put the announcement out and start to get applicants sooner rather than later. So the RFP, we do need to decide one way or the other. One of the things that was sent out in the email was whether or not we just want to go ahead and reject this existing RFP based on those 2 candidates that we got. We've all seen their dossier, so I think we can make an informed decision about that. And if we do reject that RFP, how do we move forward? And a recommendation that Mr. Davis got from Sam King from GSBA is that we can just ask firms to come and do a presentation for us and then make a decision right there. We have the power to do that. And so why not go ahead and exercise that power so that we can go ahead and move on to the next step rather than talking about the RFP some more. And if we do have that presentation, perhaps that will encourage more firms to come and give that presentation rather than the rushed effort that we were trying to get firms to do with the RFP. So that might give us more options for presentations. And then the next thing is, if we can decide on a timeline, then maybe firms would be more likely to want to present for us. So I think we're kind of having to make 2 really important decisions urgently. One is if we reject the RFP, make a call for presentations, and 2, if we can amend our timeline, stretch it out a little bit so that when we communicate with firms to do this presentation, we have a realistic timeline that does what Mrs. Davis and Dr. Dykeman recommended, which was give us some time to get this done right. Those are our 2 decisions today, I think.
So
Technology does not like me. I think that the first thing we need to do is vote these down. I also think that we need to take advantage of this immediate moment to talk in terms of an interim superintendent. And we can take advantage of Dr. Thomas's expertise as we work someone into our system. I agree we need to extend the timeline, but I think the timeline is going to need to extend all the way into a permanent superintendent coming on board next summer. Not this coming summer, but the summer 2003. So I think for this board that will, first off, have 3 new faces on it before this process is completed, and I think their input is invaluable too. But I think we need to vote this down. So my motion is that we vote these RFPs down, and then my second part of that is that we begin talking about a interim superintendent, and then third in order of priority would be the timeline that Dr. Anderson mentioned. So that's a lousy motion, but anyway, that's where my mind is at.
And I didn't send in comments, but this sums up what my thoughts. I did speak with Greg, and I spoke about it, and I agree with everything he just said and what Dr. Dykeman said as well.
Could I add one quick thing before the next? So the proposed new timeline does actually have an interim superintendent inserted into that timeline for a year. So if we just look at that proposed new timeline, if everyone likes that timeline, because it does have, I think, our wish list on it, then we could probably move forward with the new proposed timeline and then move on to the next part of our discussion, which would be the RFP.
Yeah, and from my understanding, I don't know even that we have to take action on the timeline. You know, it's good for us to have it and certainly to be consensus around it. And these will have, you know, these decisions will have implications for that timeline. But as it relates to like the interim and deciding that, and Mr. Pruitt will have to help me. I think those further discussions will probably be executive session. They would spill over into executive session once the decision is made about that. Discussing an interim, does it happen in executive session or public meeting?
Well, once you have candidates, you can talk about them in executive session. You would need to decide here, is that the route you're going to go? And then you would discuss your individual people that you want to think about in executive session.
Okay. All right. And so Greg, Mr. Davis, I hear your motion having three parts. One is to reject the the two RFPs and to begin conversations on an interim. Is that what I understand? And you had a third part, the timeline, but I'm not sure that that has to be.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think Dr. Anderson, I think she gave us a skeleton that we can work from in terms of a timeline. So yes, my formal motion is that we reject the results of the RFP for superintendent search, and that instead we begin a board process of finding a interim superintendent for FY 23. I can't keep this stuff straight, but anyway, F 23.
Second.
Okay, all right, so we have the motion to reject the RFPs and to begin conversations on the interim for FY 2023, I think, or school year 2023, 2024. I'm missing, y'all know, 22, 23, that's right, the interim, I'm sorry. And we have a second by Dr. Maddox. Questions and discussions about that motion that's on the table?
I have one. I don't want to lose the discussion and potential next steps on trying to find the permanent superintendent in all of this. So I want to make sure, I don't know if we can do this all separately, like start by having a motion to reject the RFP, and then if that's what we decide, then talking about what the next thing to do is. Because I'm not sure that I agree that putting the energy into, I mean, we need to do both, but I'm not sure that I agree with the priority of the interim over the start of the search for a permanent superintendent. Yes.
Ms. Davis and Mr. Davis?
Okay, thank you. So I agree with what Dr. Dykeman said in terms of not delaying it, but my concern about trying to even understand what we want in a superintendent really comes back to what we want the district to be and go and do. And so until we have that, and maybe that's not something we do, maybe that's the question, which comes first? Do we get the superintendent who leads that, or do we at least calm down what's happening now in our district before we bring someone else in? That's the real question that I have. And I would want us to also acknowledge that we did have two respondents, and the board is not in a position to choose either one of them. And if we need to, do we need to say anything about why we're not choosing it, or why we're going to just cancel this RFP? That's what we're doing when we reject it, right? Do we have to give a rationale for that?
No, and actually the correct wording is you're rejecting all proposals.
Excellent, thank you for that clarification.
So can I make a friendly motion in response to Greg's, as just that we reject all proposals from the RFP, period, as our first action item?
Okay, let me follow this. So originally, Mr. Davis's motion was to reject the proposals and begin conversations on the interim for this upcoming school year. And what I hear is a substitute motion from you, Dr. Yeager, which is to reject all of the proposals, period, and not include any additional information about interim.
Okay, that's a friendly amendment.
Okay, so I still have
That's
it.
fine. If the movement, Mr. Davis, wants to change his motion, then he can do that so long as there's no objection from any other board member. And then we don't have to do the substitute motion
Okay.
in a second and all that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any Mr. Davis, is it, okay, any other objections from any other board member? All right, so to be sure I'm clear, we have the motion to reject all proposals.
Yes.
Are there any additional questions and comments before we take action? Okay, all in favor of rejecting the proposals, the RFP proposals, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? All right, so where that leaves us is with the proposals rejected. Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Dr. Dykeman. The reason why I think that the interim is more appropriate right now is because this is a lousy time for any search committee, any search company or GSBA or whatever for us to begin talking about a new superintendent, even the process. So that's why I thought if we can focus first on the interim, and I do think that looking for a interim to start in August will partially address what Ms. Davis was talking about in terms of what are we looking for in the superintendent, because we don't want something opposite from an interim that we want to have as a permanent. So I do think it's one discussion. I just think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that according to Dr. King, and we've worked with him a lot, and I think we mutually respect him and appreciate his feedback. He says this is a lousy time to begin a superintendent search because they're trying to do background checks, they're trying to place people right now. So that's why, and maybe it doesn't have to be a motion at all, but I really think that we need to talk about what we're looking for an interim superintendent now and not scratch our heads after we got one meeting in April and then it's May and then, and we want this person to start at the end of August and they may have to move. And so temporarily. So I just want to put the urgency of finding an interim superintendent in place so again that we can take advantage of Dr. Thomas's coaching as this person goes into that position and then can finish out the year with us beginning in next January, who can then bring on a permanent superintendent.
I can't tell who was first, either.
Go. You want me to go ahead? Let me just get this off my mind real quick. So we voted last week to approve Dr. Dykeman to work with the agency that did the superintendent search, if we chose an agent, right? And so, again, we really need to make sure that we have concentrated work in moving us forward with whatever the next thing is. So does that then extend to this work since we have rejected the people that responded to the RFP? That are we still going to have someone to just kind of take leadership in that whole superintendent search thing, and so that remains? I think that would be my recommendation, whether we do that or not. But I think that would be an ideal thing, is to have you continue with the plans that you were doing. I also would like for us to make sure we clear our language of we're not giving preferential treatment to any search firm, right? And so I know that we have other contracts that we're under with GSBA, but I would rather we not indicate use that as necessarily a litmus thing, that they always have to be a part of that discussion. I think, again, I would like for us to bring in someone with neutrality who isn't loyal to anybody in this community, but can actually see the work that has to be done and help us build to the work that has to be done. And so therefore, I would ask that we definitely bring in neutrality in this search.
So I apologize because I'm still getting caught up trying to read all the emails and see what's been going on. I do. I'm sorry. I'll go find it. If I remember vaguely, the process that we went through to hire the superintendent before Dr. Thomas, it was a long community input process. I remember being part of it. And I don't know who directed that process. I assume it was the search firm who directed that process.
It
Okay,
was.
so in terms of how do we decide what we want, that's the group that we're looking for help from, right? And if I follow all the other correspondence, it's that we asked for some volunteers for that or some proposals for that, and the two proposals I did read were not very good. So I understand why we just voted them down. And if a conversation, I had one conversation with Kara, and I haven't had a chance to catch up with everyone, but I understood that there is a mechanism we can just invite people to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Not a formal RFP, but just come make a presentation to us. So can we just decide right now that that's what we want to do and invite those presentations to one of our next meetings? Is that the process that we're talking
Kara
about?
not do that piece? I mean, if she's going to be responsible for leading us in the superintendent search, could she not bring that recommendation back to us?
Yeah, can you make that recommendation?
And it doesn't
that
have
we-
to be now. I would think that you would have some conversations, or we would have some conversations about that, even if it's another email. So-
Yeah, I mean, do you mean organizing people to come to give presentations?
Yeah, can we
Or-
just?
Or is that a direction that we're going to take? Do we know that that's our direction?
I don't know. I don't know. If that is the direction we want to take, then yes, I'm happy to contact whoever it is that we want to contact and ask them to give presentations. I haven't done anything because I didn't know what the board wanted as the next step.
I think to date, yeah, we haven't said that that there are specific organizations other than what we've seen. Now, at the very, very beginning of these conversations, we were told that we do have flexibility, and so the board can appoint a superintendent. The board can appoint an interim superintendent. The board can appoint the person that they want to use for the search firm without going through the RFP process. The board can invite people. And so we really are just at the place where we just need to decide if that's going to be at our April meeting, if we're going to have, if we want to then determine at that meeting, or we need to determine right now, because we don't know who we're going to invite,
Right.
to come and do that. That would be something that Dr. Dykeman would need to know. And we may want to add the interim superintendent conversation onto our April meeting, because perhaps by then we'll have, we may have some more information. I'm just sort of tossing out options. We got executive session next week, is it next week? Yeah, next week for other things, so we've done the business that we have to do with the RFPs, but if the board is leaning towards inviting people, and I will defer to Mr. Pruitt here, because I would think that we would need to give Kara those names, and I don't know that we're prepared to give them to her tonight. I mean, maybe you all are, I don't know.
So I would suggest that we think about it in the next few days and get her a list of names before our next meeting, so that, maybe we don't need an action item, but at least get her those names so she can get started. It seems kind of like we're moving very slowly from the perspective of someone who's been gone for 3 months, and not a lot has happened in those 3 months, and that's a problem.
Lots has happened, but just not in that one.
There was also a list that was
on the
already
superintendent
And I
search.
will also say too, I heard some comments about one of the firms on there. Well, one of those firms found our last 2 superintendents. And if we think that's a failure on their part, then it would be our failure in giving them the requirements of what we wanted for a superintendent, because they found us exactly who we asked for each time. And so while we rejected them, I'm not going to go there, but I think it's important to know that one of those respondents we hired twice to find our superintendent, and both times we were very satisfied with the people they found.
Mr. Davis?
I swear I said I was going to stay out of this, but I cannot understand why we're talking about a process to find a superintendent who we expect to bring on board 18 months from now. Now, if that's not the understanding, and that's why I wanted to talk about, that's why I had interim number 2, because if y'all want, you want a superintendent to start January 1st? Okay, so so to go through the process of even looking for a search firm right now, to me, when you're 18 months out, you know, we went from being rushed to now having a much longer period of time, and so let's take advantage of it. But the first thing that we've got to is have somebody in place in August 1st. So I guess I'm confused why you would do the search firm process now if we're talking about wanting a superintendent by August of 2023.
Well,
So
I
can
think,
somebody explain that to me? 'Cause
yeah, I will, or
Okay,
I'll ask
thank
Mike
you.
too. Because I think when we've talked about this in the past, when we first started talking about it, Mike told us, I don't know that he said it takes 18 months. It's not really 18 months, it's more like 15 months. Or maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, he told us that the process takes a long time. I mean, we're not even at the point of selecting who we want to be the search firm yet, so that's going to take at least another month. And then we want to get really good community input, and we want them to have time to figure out what it is that we're looking for before they even put out an ad to be able to recruit people. And then the other thing that Mike had said is that it's really advantageous to be able to offer the position to somebody in like December or January so that they can then have time, if they accept the position, to get all of their things in order and move if they need to move. So am I remembering that correctly?
I don't remember my exact time. I looked back and emailed y'all the exact timeline from the last time. If I recall correctly, the 3 firms that responded to the RFP were interviewed in September, and one was selected at that same meeting or the next meeting. And then went through that process Dr. Yeager described, where they directed the community input and developing what you wanted to look for and that sort of thing. And yeah, sometime in late winter, early spring, I think, is when, you know, you'd want to make your selection, and then have that person under contract to start July 1st.
So I do think we're talking about the same thing. I don't think we're talking about trying to get somebody in for January, but allowing the amount of time necessary for all of these different pieces to take place. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we're like not that fast in doing things. So.
Really? And so if I may, would it be, I guess, appropriate or in, I guess, in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, since we've already taken action on the RFPs, Mr. Pruitt, would it be okay now to go ahead and get, to see if there's a consensus around what RFP or what organizations the board would like to see presentations from, so that we're not doing that over email, or do we need to do that at another meeting since there's not an agenda item here for that?
Go ahead and talk about it. Obviously, at some point, either the board as a whole or the board officers are going to have to direct and put on the agenda which firms are going to appear and when to make these presentations. Right. So how you get that consensus and whether you do it by board vote or just by the board officers putting it on the agenda, that's up to you.
All right, so in preparation then for our meeting and setting the agenda setting meeting, are there any specific firms that we want to be looking at?
Could we start with a list of firms that had requested our initial RFP. I mean, there were about at least a half a dozen. I think there were about 10 or so. 12.
Well, we had,
Could we go with that list first?
I agree with that.
so we had 12 firms requested the RFP and only 2 responded, is that right? Okay.
I think
I'm going to leave that sitting out there, but I'm also going to ask again, why are we spending money on a disparity study, which is going to show us that we do preferential treatment in terms of hiring firms? Because what we are about to do is throw out that whole idea of equity and transparency and allowing the process to evolve the best candidate. And we're saying, okay, we'll pick one that we like. So I don't know why we would spend $300,000 and then turn around and do the very thing that we know that the disparity study might point us out as being failing in.
Because the disparity study is necessary for us to revise our RFP so that we are more equitable and that we are intentional about being equitable. I know that you say that a lot, but it's because we want to make sure that we are clear that we want minorities, low income, or however, whatever comes out of that. We want people that are not normally getting contracts. We're going beyond what this is, but that's what the purpose of the disparity study is. We cannot do that without having the disparity study. It's a requirement.
And so, here are the options. We're going to start with that list. Does that mean that we're inviting all 12 of those people, or is that going to be something that we decide as we're setting the agenda? You get what I mean? Because there's no, I don't know that we have time.
They didn't respond.
What was that?
Why would we go to that list if those people didn't respond?
Well, I think what's been shared is that there may have been a lot of different reasons that they perhaps didn't respond. And then I want to remind us again, we did not even have to have a list. I know that it's probably some philosophical differences, but we didn't have to have a list as a board. We didn't have to have a list for RFPs, organizations. We don't have to, we have some flexibility here. So we just need to know, how do we move forward? If we know that Dr. Dykeman is going to be inviting, if it's the consensus of the board that Dr. Dykeman, or we're going to ask a few of these people to come and do presentations, then we need to figure out who that is in a public discussion versus, on email. And so are we going to invite all 12 of the people, the organizations? Is that what I'm hearing from the board?
I'm not in favor of that. I'm asking again, if you said at the beginning, we don't have to have an RFP, we don't have to have a search firm, we can choose a superintendent. Can we answer that question of how do we want to choose a superintendent?
I think we can, and the board decided. When we discussed this, the board, when we didn't decide to just choose a superintendent, and I know we can always go back, but the board decided that we wanted to do an RFP process, or we wanted someone, use a search firm. And then the board then decided by that we didn't have a particular search firm, at least at that point in mind, that we wanted to do an RFP for search firms.
And so we rejected the response from our RFP. Are we going to reissue the RFP? Or are we going to an alternative method of selection?
It sounds like we're going to an alternative method of selection, that we are going to select the person who is going to do the search, the organization that's going to do the search. That's what I hear. I think that's what I hear. And to move us forward a little bit, Mr. Davis, real quick, if we're not able to decide, like tonight, if we're going to have all 12 of the people come at some point and we want Dr. Dykeman to arrange that, then what I would recommend is that we put it on our April meeting, an item to determine who the organizations are that we're inviting, and then an item to discuss interim superintendent. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I just don't want to run into the same problem that we had to why we only had 2 out of 12 respond, and that is the time period. This is the time that these companies are doing their background checks, are doing the kind of process that we went through, Ms. Davis and I at least, and I guess a lot of you did, with the previous superintendent. So they're going through that process now, and then we're saying, we're kind of like bringing up, we're the caboose. This is not, these next couple of months, they're locating, these companies are in the business of locating superintendents to start July 1. That's why the response was so poor. So I wanted to just give them a month to get things settled. And in the meantime, it's not like we're sitting on our thumbs, because we need to have someone in position, I guess ideally July 1, and not August 1, but July 1, as an interim.
And I'm totally fine with doing this in a month and letting people think about who they would like to invite, maybe doing a little research on it and bringing names to the April meeting. I'm not opposed to that at all. I just didn't want to lose this process totally. So if that is what people think is the best, to talk about it again next month, I'm totally fine with that.
How about we concentrate on getting that interim superintendent in first, and at the same time go about looking at the process that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can be done at the same time. I just didn't want to lose the process.
I think Mr. Davis is right on the timing. When I said late winter, early spring, that's kind of when you're starting to narrow down the field of candidates, but it is, on into May when they're still doing all that work and that final selection and the contracts getting signed. So just affirm that from my memory of how it's worked the last times.
Okay, and so perhaps then for our April work session / meeting, we have an item on there for discussion and determination of RFPs. I'm sorry, I keep saying RFPs, search firm organizations that we want to do a presentation. And we make that determination then. So between now and then, we need to be looking at those options. And that way we can take action on the people that we want to come, and then Dr. Dykeman can then give them dates of when we want them to come. But that will be the work. That could be based on the work for August, because search firms are still in the thick of it right now. And then the interim superintendent discussion is one that we can put on that April meeting. We have a meeting next week that is specifically for evaluation. So if we feel that we want to have an interim, the general conversation at the beginning of that meeting, or maybe the end of that meeting, and then while we're in executive session, go ahead and discuss candidates, or if we want to just put that on April's agenda, we can too, because although we say July 1, Dr. Thomas is here throughout the year, until December, and she has stated that she would be willing to help in whatever way. So I'm just trying to move us forward. So are you all okay with us having that on the April, both of those on our April meetings? Or Mr. Davis, are you feeling the urge to maybe have that conversation sooner? Ms. Davis, Ms. Gallagher, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Yeager.
Is it possible to have a short conversation next week about who people might be having in their minds to talk to? Do we need to talk to some of these ideas of who the interim might be before we actually bring them all forward? I don't know, some people might have ideas. Be nice to hear those ideas.
Yeah, in executive session, yeah. I think the last time we did, we discussed it in executive session, and.
Well, we can't discuss it in executive session, but we can, unless we're talking about people.
Yeah, I think you were talking
That's
about people.
what I was talking about,
Right,
sort of for preliminary people that people have in mind. Just to be curious and get that conversation started.
I'm going to take time and write a process, and I'll share that with everybody electronically that I've thought about too. So, good.
I couldn't hear you, Linda. Can you say
I
that
said,
again?
I'm going to share a process that I think we went through when we had another interim superintendent, and I'll share that information with you so that you can consider that as an option as well.
Okay, so what am I hearing as far as the interim? Are we going to place that on April's agenda
That would be great.
or have it next week? What is the general consensus?
I think the action would be
just see.
taken in April anyway, would it not?
I'm happy to have the conversation in April if people would read their emails and be prepared to have that conversation when we get here.
I agree with that, with Dr. Anderson.
What she said.
Yeah, I guess it's oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You know, we do have, and I don't know, Linda, if you've had a chance to look at it, but I forwarded just a list of folks who have expressed interest through GSBA to be interim. I sent that to
I don't see it yet.
I sent that to leadership earlier. So, I mean,
Not for us specifically, just in general. They've expressed interest in being in.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. No,
I just
this is,
wanted to
I'm sorry, yeah.
clarify.
This is just in general. Just, I'm available. You know, that's all it is, and there's no vouching for them. I mean, we would have to do our own vouching. So this is just, you know, but it's more than just throwing something at the wall and see what sticks. So, I mean, it is a place to start from. But I just offer that as a suggestion.
Did you say you sent that to everyone or just
I
to?
have
Yeah, I
now.
just
Everyone
opened it.
has it.
Yes,
Okay.
you got it today too.
Okay. Thank you.
And so what I'm thinking then, and please chime in if you have any opposition to this, that we put these two items on the April agenda. Now, if we start to talk about people, then we know we're probably going to need to have an executive session for that April meeting. But between now and that April meeting, if you would, go back and take a look at the information that's been sent from Mr. Davis, from Dr. Anderson, and Dr. Dykeman, and if Ms. Davis sends something, so that we are prepared to take action on who we want to invite. And just keep in mind, we can invite one person. We don't have to invite any. We can just look at them and say, hey, this is what, we can select our own, but we need to be able to take action on who those search firms are going to be. And then we will have a conversation around the interim, the idea of interim superintendent, but be prepared to go into executive session to discuss candidates and, you know, just general timeline for the interim. All hearts and minds clear?
As mine.
Any thoughts or before we adjourn? Okay, yes. So we'll move forward. If no further conversation, we'll move forward to item 11, which is adjournment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Dr. Anderson, Dr. Maddox. I'm seeing that there are no objections. We are adjourned at 8:46.
Yay.
Have a good evening.